Mark Stoops and the Kentucky Wildcats showed in a very upsetting loss to South Carolina that the Cats just aren't very good anymore.
You are Locked On Kentucky, your daily podcast on the Kentucky Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what's going on, Big Blue Nation? Welcome on into Locked On Kentucky, your daily Kentucky Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Lance Dawe, and on today's episode of Locked On Kentucky, we're going to talk about Kentucky's 35-13 loss to the South Carolina Gamecocks. Not exactly what we wanted to see out of Mark Stoops and company. Unfortunately, I think the reality here is that Kentucky's just not very good, and we just have to accept that that's the reality and ask the question, is the Mark Stoops era really over at UK? Is the good times just kind of making their way out the door? I fear that they might be, and it's partially because of what's going on here at Kentucky, and it's also part of what's going on in this conference. We'll dive into that as well as recap the game today. On top of that, also, Tay Kinney committed to Kansas. Not Louisville, not Kentucky, not Arkansas, Kansas. We'll get into that later. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. You can download the Game Time app. You can create an account. You can use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On Kentucky your first listen every single day. Want to remind everyone out there that we are free and available on all platforms. And if you're watching on YouTube, I would greatly appreciate it if you subscribe to the show. And if you are listening on podcast, I would also appreciate it if you subscribe there as well. Thank you guys for tuning in, whether you are wherever you are, I should say. South Carolina is not a very good football team, and yet Kentucky found a way to lose. 35-13 is the final score, and if you look at this on its face without really diving into the box stats or anything like that, you may say, well, how could you possibly say Carolina's not very good? They just destroyed you at home. When you start to dive into the stats and kind of how this game played out, I just don't really think South Carolina's that good. But frankly, Kentucky's worse. And then they shot themselves in the foot in this game, and they made it even worse. The first thing I want to get to here are the turnovers. 4 turnovers for Kentucky in this game, a couple of picks thrown by Cutter Bully, 1 return for a touchdown. I've got this here on my sticky notes here as a stat to lead with. Kentucky had 4 turnovers in this game, and of those 4 turnovers, South Carolina scored 21 points. The only turnover that they did not score off of was a fumble at the end of the first half on that pitch back, I believe, that South Carolina ended up recovering. That's the only time they didn't score because the clock expired and we went to halftime. This would have otherwise been an 8-point loss. Yeah, 21-13 would have been the final score if Kentucky had not given up those 2 defensive touchdowns. That interception and then that fumble where Bully just held onto the ball for too long. And then it would have been even closer. It could have been a 14-13 type of game if Kentucky had just held on to the ball and not made mistakes. I think I actually was right about a couple of different things in this one. I thought Kentucky was going to be able to run the ball to some effect. Seth McGowan had 112 yards and a touchdown in this game, opened that game with that 20-yard touchdown run where he hit, I believe it was Sellers' one of Sellers' relatives, I should say, in the crowd. He apologized for that. I don't know if it was intentional or not. I don't think it is. Anyway, that's not what we're talking about here. Seth McGowan and Kentucky, I think, ran the ball to some effect. Dante Dowdle, not what you're looking for here from him. 13 carries, 24 yards. But McGowan, I think he's a fine player. This is probably the best player on this offense, and it's probably the best player that you have on this team right now. Kentucky ran the ball. They turned the ball over, and they never really gave themselves a chance to get into this game after the first 4 drives, where I believe they went up 10-0, if I'm not mistaken. Awful wide receiver play is another note that I have here. Kentucky just doesn't have good wideouts. They don't have a guy that they can go to, and not even necessarily a guy that they can go to, just somebody that can be a breakout player, a potential breakout kid. They don't have explosiveness in this room. The North Texas transfer, Jamori Macklin, 2 catches for 10 yards. He's just kind of out there. Kendrick Law, 41 yards in this game, more of a gadget type guy. And you could use him in a variety of ways. I like him in this room. He's just not somebody with a very high ceiling. Fred Ferrier is on the field as your 3rd best receiver, who had 4 yards receiving in this game. Kentucky just can't really put the ball in the air and get them to their playmakers. The only players that are worth anything are your tight ends. Willie Rodriguez with the 53-yard catch in this one at 66 yards in total. Is that what you want leading this offense? Is that what you want leading the way for the Cats? I don't necessarily know, and that's not to say Willie's a bad player. I don't think he is. I think the tight ends have been fine this year, fine to good. But Kentucky just doesn't have any explosiveness in their receiver room, which is really upsetting to see. Again, we talk about the turnovers. We talk about the mistakes. Cutter Boley is not a good player right now. But I'm going to continue to say, and I think a lot of people out there would agree, he's better than what we've got with Zach Calzada. And a lot of you that watched this show, I don't quite understand how you took me saying Boley should be the quarterback because he's a better quarterback over Zach Calzada. You took that and you somehow made it into I thought that Cutter Boley was some world-beating Heisman type guy. And so whenever Boley doesn't play well, you criticize that opinion as if it's some moronic take to say that Cutter Boley is better than the 7th-year transfer who could not put the ball in the air. At the very least, Cutter Boley is trying to air the ball out. Now, sometimes it doesn't work out, as we saw in this game with the 2 picks, one of which was, again, returned for a touchdown. But at least he's going out there and trying something. I think that you see flashes, but with this offensive coordinator and with the personnel around him, you are never going to see Cutter Boley consistently blossom into the quarterback that he could be. It's just not going to happen. But he is better than Calzada. I don't understand the pushback on that take. If anything, right now, you should be trying to continue to develop him, trying to do things with him, instead of saying, well, let's just go back to the 7th-year QB. If you're looking towards the future, now's the time to try and get Boley going. Unfortunately, to no avail in this game. The final thing here, 3rd down defense was just awful in this game. Kentucky allowed 8 of 15 conversions. That's just really bad. That's the big glaring stat that I'm looking at here. South Carolina didn't really do anything impressive offensively outside of convert on 3rd down. 341 total yards here in this game for Carolina. Just only 163 yards passing. Sellers was 12 of 15, but again, it wasn't anything explosive. It wasn't anything crazy impressive outside of like that 150-yard play. This is not a good Carolina team. This is a beatable team, as shown in their 3-2 record. But Stoops just can't get past Beamer, and that's kind of where we're at. This is Beamer ball to a T, right? With the defensive plays, with the defensive touchdowns, with the pressure that they put on Kentucky in this game. I believe South Carolina had like 6 sacks in this one. This is just not a good showing for Mark Stoops and company. And it doesn't get any better. It really doesn't get better. It doesn't get better this season, and it doesn't get better for the future. I want to talk about why here in just a second. Before we do that, though, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, you can get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use code SHCollege5 for 5% off your order. That's SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order over at supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. College football is back and college basketball is right around the corner. I could not be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands and the arena, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. It's all ridiculous, and that's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best price with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. Take the guesswork out of buying your college football tickets or college basketball tickets as well with Game Time by downloading the Game Time app, creating an account, and using code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right, continuing along here on today's episode of Locked On Kentucky, pausing for water. As we continue to discuss Kentucky football, which in its current state sucks. There is no other way to put it. This is a bad football team. This is not a good spot for the football program after getting drubbed by South Carolina and shooting yourself in the foot for the majority of that contest. And guys, the bad news is that it's not getting any better. There is no way out of this, at least it seems, unless Kentucky finds a way to miraculously turn things around against some really good competition. As of today, ESPN's FPI projects Kentucky to finish the season 3-9. The only game that they have them projected to win is against Tennessee Tech on November 15th. Outside of that, Kentucky is projected to go winless in conference play. Down here at the bottom with Auburn, Florida, and Arkansas, who just fired their head coach. Mississippi State 0-1, but at least there's life there with the Bulldogs. This is a bad situation for Mark Stoops. No duh. This weekend, you get the pleasantries of traveling to Athens, Georgia, to face off against a pissed-off Georgia team that just lost to Alabama. The line is already almost at 21 points. And you're going to go in there and you're going to get drubbed. Almost definitely. I know what's happened with Kentucky and Georgia in the past. Right now, that should be a bloodbath. That should be an ugly, ugly game for Kentucky on the road in Athens. No chance, barring a miracle, that Kentucky finds a way to pull that one out, right? They're going to get destroyed against Georgia. They return home against Texas. That is just simply a more talented program. I don't care what anybody's saying about Arch or how they've not looked good in certain spots. Texas is a good team, probably a playoff team, depending on how things go. And again, it would take a Herculean effort and a miracle effort at that to beat Texas right now. Tennessee has weak spots, but they're not going to get exposed, I think, against Kentucky. That's another game where you're projected to lose, and it makes sense why. On the road at Auburn, a team that has really struggled offensively, but has proven themselves to have one of the best defenses, it looks like, in all of college football. On the road in that spot, hate that for Kentucky, against a team that you couldn't get past last year, and they sucked last year. Florida at home. This is the only conference game. This is the only game on the schedule where I could possibly see Kentucky pulling this out because of how bad DJ Lagway and that offense is. Florida has a pretty good defense. The offense is terrible. That one's at home. I could see it happening, but again, another game you are not projected to win. You go and look at the ESPN FPI, gives Florida a 56% chance to win that one. And there's the Tennessee Tech game. If you don't beat Tennessee Tech, we're going to have, it's not even going to be a conversation about Stoops. You have to get rid of him then, I think. On the road at now 16th ranked Vanderbilt. I don't care if Vanderbilt's ranked or not by the time that game rolls around. there's almost no chance you're beating Diego Pavia and company. That's not happening. With the way that they're playing offense right now, it's not happening. Vanderbilt, by the way, Vanderbilt. And then on the road at Louisville to close things out. I know the magic that's happened in that game in the past. Wouldn't predict it here with an anemic offense that got drubbed by them a season ago, mind you. This season is probably going to suck. For those of you that have asked, and I appreciate it, and we should talk about it on the show, to hear about more football. Where's the football talk, Lance? Why are you not talking about football? Do you really, and I'm being serious, do we really want to give all of the attention to this program right now in its current state? I feel for the kids. I feel for the players that are playing hard. I feel for McGowan. I feel for Boley. I feel for Rafari. I feel for every player in that locker room. Mark Stoops, I don't think is going to figure this one out. I just don't think he will. Until they prove that they can somehow miraculously turn this around. And who knows? Maybe they'll steal a game like they did on the road against Ole Miss last year. Who knows? I don't know. But in their current state, Kentucky football is an afterthought. It's what it was before Stoops got here, and it's wading back into those waters right now. With a exhibition game against Purdue on October 24th, we are a month out from completely shifting our focus to a different program in this athletic department. There will be fans that stick this out. I will continue to watch. I just probably won't be as engaged emotionally. And I don't think a lot of people that watch this show or consider themselves to be Kentucky fans will be either. I'll be rooting for the kids. I am very upset with the way that this program is being directed under Stoops offensively. It's clear they are not changing the way that they want to do things, and that's evidenced in the fact that they kept Bush. This is a bad offense. This is a bad scheme. This is bad personnel. This is a bad situation all around. Until things change, it's going to be a bad season. And it does not get better. It does not get better. In case you did not hear, the SEC is now moving to a 9-game conference schedule for the 2026 season and beyond. Kentucky's conference foes are as follows: Alabama, Florida, LSU, Vanderbilt, and then on the road against Missouri, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Texas A&M. Find me the win. Find me a win there amongst those 9 conference opponents. Oh, by the way, you also have to play Louisville. I've seen some people say that there's not room for that rivalry anymore. If they're going to suck, if they're going to be a sub 500 program year in and year out, why not play it? Why not play the rivalry is what I think. That is a 2-10 team that you are staring at unless something dramatically changes. And guys, right now, it doesn't look like anything's going to change. The worst part about this is the fact that Mark Stoops probably can't be bought out right now. At least I wouldn't think. There's too much money at stake. We are in the exact same position that we were in 2024, last year. I don't know why I said 2024. Last year, coming off of that loss to Oakland, we were sitting here saying, well, they're probably not going to fire him. There's too much money involved, and we're just going to have to run it back and pray that something changes. And thankfully, Arkansas came calling, and Kentucky was able to get out of that with John Calipari. Texas A&M came calling a couple of years ago, and Stoops was ready to leave. And frankly, I think a large portion, well, I wouldn't say a large portion, I think there are people out there that wish he had left then. And since then, I've kind of held a grudge. It's like, okay, you were willing to leave this program in the middle of the night for Texas A&M. The only reason you didn't get the job is because they flipped out over the fact that they were about to hire you. And now you see what this program has become. You had 2 7-6 seasons with what a lot of people thought was a good to great college football quarterback in Will Levis. Physically gifted, schematically, I think the Wildcats failed him in various spots. 7-6, 2 bowl losses. You were expected to be something in 2022. You really weren't. And then you have the 4-8 year last year. You honestly, you should have been better in 2023 as well, with Devin Leary at the helm. It's crazy how everybody wanted to crap on Devin Leary, and here we are saying, man, it'd be really nice to have somebody like him back. And now you're here probably going to go 4-8, 3-9 again, unless something miraculously changes. You are back at where you were at the start of Stoops' tenure. Those 3 years, 2-10, 5-7, 5-7. It's not getting better. The schedule's getting tougher. It doesn't really seem like you care to change anything, despite what maybe some of the things that are being said. The offense is anemic. The defense can't get off the field on third down consistently. I like Brad White. It's just nothing's happening here. This is a bad situation. This sucks. There's no other way to put it. This is terrible. And a lot of people are fed up. I'm fed up. I'm tired of watching it. I'm tired of seeing it. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Will they actually fire him and cough up the money? I don't know. And that begs the question, who do you go and hire? Who are you going to hire that wants to come to the University of Kentucky to coach football? I don't know. It's the winningest coach in your program's history, if I'm not mistaken. And now he's reverted back to, he doesn't know how to coach offense. It's not happening. I hope they pull it out. I hope they find a way. But it's clear right now, it doesn't really seem like they have any interest in doing so. We'll continue to move on. Tay Kinney committed to Kansas. This is not a shocker to me. Kentucky's got other guys that they've got their eyes set on. It's a loss for sure. I just find it funny that he didn't commit to Indiana, Louisville, or Kentucky. We'll dive into this in just a little bit because it's just bizarre to me. Before we do that, though, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at the Gamecock. Quick question for you college basketball fans out there. Let's talk about something positive. If you could go back in time and sit front row at Kentucky's biggest college basketball rivalry game that you could think of back in the day, what hat would you be wearing? That's right, I said hat, because for me, if I were taking it back to the 80s or 90s, I would be wearing the Game. And these aren't just hats, by the way. They're the same vintage styles that fans wore back in the 80s and 90s. And guess what? They still go for the same price they did back then. When you use code LOCKEDON, you will get your vintage hat for $16.99. It's a great deal. Head to thegamecaps.com to grab your team's classic bar or retro circle design and use code LOCKEDON for an exclusive discount, because legends wear the game. All right, wrapping up today's episode, obviously frustrated with the state of Kentucky football, we move. Kentucky basketball loses out on a high-profile recruit, Tay Kinney, who has announced his commitment to Kansas, according to On3. He chose the Jayhawks over Louisville, Arkansas, Indiana, Kentucky, and obviously other schools. Kentucky was out on this for quite some time. I don't know the details, whether Kinney lost interest or Kentucky decided to pull their resources elsewhere. They decided, okay, maybe they want to go find somebody that fits a little bit better, or what. This is an incredibly talented kid, and anytime you miss out on a prospect like this, or Jason Crow Jr., or somebody like that, it does stink, right? At the same time, though, I do find it funny that, again, he didn't go to Louisville, and he didn't go to Arkansas, and he didn't go to Indiana. None of those schools. A little weird, to be honest with you, the way that this kind of wrapped up with the recruiting process because it looked like it was going to be Louisville, it was going to be Kansas, or excuse me, it was going to be Indiana, it was going to be Arkansas, it was going to be one of those three schools for sure. Kentucky kind of stepped out of the race. And then here comes Kansas. I don't know what they offered him. I don't know if he just really thinks that this is the best spot for him. But, you know, he's probably going to go up to Kansas. He's probably going to succeed, man. He said it was a no-brainer. He said the hardest part of it all was just calling the coaches and telling them because he had good relationships with every coach and staff in the top 6. He said it was the University of Kansas just because Bill Self's background is great. They're just a winning program. He said, I feel like I'm going to be on that stage to be able to get to the league. No duh. Any program that you would have went to, everybody would have been watching. You're an OTE 5-star point guard. Yeah, you're going to be watched. He's absolutely going to be watched. He talked a lot about how they make pros, and that's what he's interested in. And then he was asked who else he's trying to recruit to Kansas, and he said he already knows one that's coming. Right when I said I was going, I put that call in. I ain't going to say his name, but he's going to announce. And then trying to get Tyron Stokes. That's what Kinney said. With the way that things are shaking out right now with Stokes, I feel better about where Kentucky stands with him. It's just a matter of whether or not they want to really throw the money at him, I think. I think that Kentucky's in a good spot here as we get closer to an announcement, possibly. I don't know when that announcement will be. They said it might be soon. I don't know. But I am okay with where Kentucky's at in that recruitment. I don't know if Kansas is going to get him because Kansas has been pushing late again here. Jayhawks coming in once again. But we'll see how it unfolds. Who was the runner-up for Kansas? Or to Kansas for Kinney? According to On3 Rivals, and again, this is from Tipton, he said it would probably be Arkansas or Louisville. Those two. Again, I don't know why he didn't go to one of those two places, but I'm not complaining. At least we don't have to play him, right? That's kind of the bright spot here. And the other bright spot is this is not the point guard that Kentucky wanted, clearly, the most, because if they did, they would have been in the race a lot longer than they were, I think. Now, sure, would we have taken TK? Absolutely, we would have taken TK. Are there some things about his game I don't like? Yeah. Is he a great scorer? Absolutely, we would have taken him. But Kentucky is really looking hard at Darren Rippey Jr. And to be honest with you guys, we talked about this for 45 minutes, I think, last week. If Jalen Lowe plays as efficiently as this staff is hyping him up to potentially play, as this is going to be a great situation for Kentucky if they can get him to come back for one more year. At the worst, J-Lo plays well enough to go to the league, and you bring in a 5-star point guard, you go get somebody in the transfer portal to be either the backup or to be a steady presence to start with Rippey playing a lot of minutes coming off the bench. This is a good spot for UK at point guard. They're going to be fine. Who knows who knows how this recruitment may play out. Maybe Kentucky comes back to TK and he flips. I don't know. We don't know anything, but it could be possible. It sucks to lose out on it, but it is a weird recruiting cycle, man. This has been a really weird recruiting cycle, all around. We'll continue to keep tabs on Stokes. We'll continue to keep tabs on Holt. I'm going to be interested to see how this plays out. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Kentucky. You can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On UK. Follow me on Twitter at LanceDawe_. And follow the show over on Instagram. That is at Kentucky Podcast. Questions, comments, concerns, leave those in the YouTube comments below. Hit me on the socials. I'll see you all tomorrow for another episode. Have a great rest of your day, guys. And God bless.